that true? We heard this morning about the issue of financing and efficiency of financing. Are market-based mechanisms more efficient, more reliable, and more predictable than ODA? This slide summarizes essentially most of what I've mentioned already. And I would like to conclude my provocatory presentation with this last cartoon, with this, thanks to Dr. Ramani. I think it summarizes a little bit the debates and the discussions that have been happening around climate change. And what do we do now? I mean, is it time to start investing? What will make the private sector, what will make the market mechanisms work? I hope the panel members will help us respond to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mireille. Lots of very interesting questions there that I hope our panelists can respond to. A couple of questions that stick in my mind in particular is, will the market or will the private sector actually pay? And is there actually a return on investment for spending money on climate change adaptation? So let's move on and have some responses, and we'll start with Collie.
Good afternoon, and it's my pleasure to greet all of you on behalf of Agriculture Insurance Company of India. We are incidentally administering the two world's largest index-based insurance program. One is the yield index program, and the second is a weather index program. Guess the time given to me, I'll try to respond to some of the questions raised by the provocator. We started the yield index program in the year 1979. And which is the flagship program in the country, which annually insures about 25 million farmers and about 35 million hectares of cropped area. And in 2003, we started with a pilot on the weather index insurance. In 2007, the government started providing financial support. And the yield program is still, the government works as a stop-loss reinsurer, but the weather index program, it's a commercial program. The private sector players are also involved. They also enjoy the same level of subsidy in the premiums. And we are covering parameters like rainfall, excess heat, low temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, covering almost 40 different crops. We are using crop growth simulation modeling techniques to establish the relationship between the weather and the yield, so that it doesn't work like a derivative, but it works more like an insurance product. We are largely successful because a lot of research goes into the product design. For this year, for the first half of this year, we have insured over 5 million farmers under the weather index insurance. The private sector has insured about 1 million farmers. So we have learned a lot in the last couple of years, and we found some challenges which were successfully overcame in the last 4 years. And there's some challenges I think it will take some time before we overcome. The fact is, when it comes to financing, I guess there's one thing we'll have to remember. Agriculture basically deals with systemic risk and also the high frequency events. So consequently, the premium rates are likely to be high. So therefore, it is, I think, unreasonable to expect the poor farmers of this region to pay the full commercial premium. So therefore, we are of the firm view that we don't need to feel guilty or feel bad that we are requesting the government to subsidize the premiums. So this is a concept, and given the fact that the agriculture insurance subsidies are conceptually falls in green box, so they are WTO compliant, and what we have seen in the last couple of years is the countries where already it's there, they're expanding the programs, taking advantage of the WTO green box, and the countries which we don't have, they are trying to introduce new programs. So therefore, we're seeing a huge increase in the market. Thanks to the weather index insurance program in the last 3 years, a large number of automatic weather stations have come up. We have about 4,000 automatic weather stations and about 2,000 telemetric rain gauges coming from both the public sector and also the private sector. And we also have a manual stations. This network is large enough, but from the basis risk point of view, our estimate is that we need about 8,000 automatic weather stations and about 32,000 telemetric rain gauges. So we would like to basically respond to some of the queries by saying that is a fit case. In this particular part of the world, we are talking about the Asian Pacific. Besides the 2 points I mentioned, that is the systemic risk and also the high frequency events. We also know we are dealing with informational asymmetries, meaning adverse selection and the moral hazard. And most countries, we have the disaster relief. For example, India has a huge disaster relief program. So in fact, we clearly advocating to the government to integrate or to channelize part of the agricultural relief, which we all know may not be 100% efficient. We are giving the benefit. So you transfer, channelize that money to subsidize the crop insurance premiums. And also we want the government to draw a distinction between insurance and the disaster relief. And we are of the view that where government is subsidizing the premiums, I don't think government is required to provide ad hoc relief. Otherwise, farmers continue to believe that they are entitled for relief, so they may not buy agriculture insurance. And our Indian government is actually quite receptive to some of the ideas. And also, farmers basically still, ignorant and the lack of awareness. So we are building enough capacity and also low risk awareness. We are working on it, and consequently, we are able to successfully overcome some of these challenges. For example, this year, we're going to write a commercial premium, weather index premium of roughly $170 million. Of that, nearly 50% is transferred to the international reinsurance market. There are 5 reinsurers on the panel. And thanks to the success of the weather index insurance, the government is now thinking in terms of moving the yield index program, which is actually a government-driven program, to a commercial platform, meaning to say that they want to move their entire financial support from the back end to the front end. That is from claim subsidy to the premium subsidies. So they've already launched a pilot in the 50 district, that is about 8% of the country, from this Rabi season, where we as a government company and the private players can participate. We commercially price. The premium comes partly from the farmers and the rest from the federal and the provincial governments. And we are fully responsible for the claims. And we are going to certainly reinsure some of the risk and transfer this risk to the international market. So just to summarize, I strongly feel, having worked with on small assignments with World Bank, FAO, WFP, and many other organizations, India has proved that index insurance can really work if provided you actually take care of some of the issues which are likely to come up. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Basically, we have done enough work, so we know what kind of challenges are expected. So I think you can always learn, and this can be an important program. And particularly the Indian government now trying to tell us, or rather they already told us, saying that we have to incentivize the adaptability or the adapting the sustainable agriculture practices in insurance program. So the government is now actually coming with a program which provides an additional subsidy, an additional incentive for farms which adopt sustainable practices. This is basically to push the farmers towards using sustainable agriculture practices. So in all, I believe it's a success story, but we have learned our way. It's not that we don't have any problem. We had lots of challenges. We have resolved, and we have some more challenges. But I certainly see this as an important index, as an important model for many countries which don't have farm level data, which don't have yield data. So I think particularly weather index can really be an answer. So in any case, I'm going to respond to the queries when it comes and some of the ways we are doing it. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Collie. Moving on to Thomas.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you have seen already in the presentation, Munich Re is very active once it comes to natural catastrophe. We have 125 years experience, or meanwhile, in natural catastrophes, and also statistics you can see. That was more or less our intention, that we have figured out that some countries suffer a lot due to climate change. And from this part on, we have decided as a long-term initiative that we will focus on particularly the poor people living in the developing countries. And for me, it's now a very exciting time because just a week ago, we launched a new product you might have heard in the press in Philippines. So you will ask yourself why we have done this in Philippines, what are the reasons behind. And I think if I start to explain the product, you will also get the answers of a lot of questions they are addressed to the panel. In Philippines, they changed 2 years ago the legislation. They support microinsurance in such a way that they have set up a framework where cooperatives can now more or less sell and provide insurance to their individual members. This is very important, and this is also one answer to the questions we got in respect of profit. If you look at the value chain of the traditional insurance, 40 to 60% of the costs go to brokers, intermediaries, and has nothing to do with insurance as such. And if you look at the added values they provide, it's almost minor. So with this kind of approach, we more or less have a breakthrough to a new way how to address and how to pass on the benefits to the poor. And with this framework, we said, okay, this is for us a go-ahead. And from the first time on, Munich Re started to cooperate directly with the cooperative. And the cooperative, they have a joint responsibility. There's a big joint responsibility within the members, social responsibilities. And we could monitor it after events. That once there is an event, each member helps each other. And the cooperatives are more or less the strengthening arm and the risk management tool the people have. And we said, we want to support this institution. The problem is with the cooperatives, they provide loans as well. And what we have identified, particularly after the last typhoons, Ondoi or Ketsana, we have identified that the default rate of loans has increased dramatically. Usually they operate with a default rate on 3%. After an event like Ketsana, we could see a default rate of 70%, 80%. In a nutshell, those cooperatives can hardly survive, or if they want to survive, they have to charge interest rate and additional risk rates, which are enormous. We have seen interest rates from 50 to 60%. And we said, okay, this is something where we want to now bring in some of our expertise, and this is where we want to develop something. The next point is, if you think about traditional insurance pays out after natural catastrophe 6 months or 12 months later. But the people need the money immediately after the event. So this was actually also for us the way how we approached it. We want to have a solution where we have fast cash. And that's already addressed, and as already said, we developed the index product where we monitor extreme weather events. I say extreme weather events, it's extreme rainfall and extreme wind speed. And these extreme events are monitored on a municipality level. So we have for each and every municipality, this is a local government unit in the Philippines, we have an individual index. And with this index, we categorize the intensity in 3 levels based on the reoccurrence period from 10, 15, and 20 years. So with this kind of system, we want to protect the underlying loans of the government, of the cooperatives. And in case of the event, the cooperative gets the cash. Now the big question is how we can ensure that the cash will be actually at the end passed on to the borrowers. And this is where we had more or less used a trick. We worked together with a public agency. It's a public-private agency. It's a German government agency called GTZ. They will monitor that the money will go to a fund and emergency loans we provided to the poor. So at the end, we could more or less find a solution where cooperatives buy on behalf of their members a solution where at the end, those who need it most get some compensation. And I think this is the right step and the right task we have done. And this is also a lessons learned from our previous microinsurance approach where we wanted to address systemic risk to each and every individual one. And I have to say, there was minor interest. But from this perspective and from the reaction we got, even after 10 days, I would say it's enormous. The whole solution can be monitored by a web-based system, which will be daily updated. This means